Welcome to Creative in Tech, a podcast show powered by ReadSpeaker AI. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and I'm the brand evangelist for North America at ReadSpeaker. This show is all about highlighting the various brands, organizations, and people that are creatively using one of the fastest growing spaces in technology, conversational AI. And in these next few discussions, we've been chatting with people in the banking and financial space about how those verticals are using this technology to help grow, innovate, and enhance their customer experience and journey. And so, yet again, I have another lovely guest. I have Miss Sibel. She is a senior voice UX architect at US Bank and the lead ambassador for Silicon Valley Women in Voice chapter. So excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I appreciate you having me here.
Yes, and I want to just start off by saying that you and I had met, I think maybe last year, and you were so kind to devote your time to have a conversation with me about conversational design. And after speaking with
Yes.
you, I had a new level of appreciation for the type of work you do and how much goes into it technically and creatively. And so I'm excited that you're here to share more. So thank you.
Yeah, totally.
So you have been in this space for a while, and you've also kind of been working in the financial space as a while, doing this type of work. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself personally and what excites you about being in the conversational AI space?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, my academic background is in computational linguistics. After I got my Master of Science in computational linguistics, I basically had a pretty fast jump start into voice technology. And that started as quite technical, and had a chance to work as a text-to-speech language engineer. And in hindsight, that kind of really paved the way into getting into conversation design for me, because a lot of text to speech infrastructure requires building a corpus that is in a scripted format. And as a text to speech language engineer, I had a chance to create those scripts and got familiar with more of the conversational design aspects of that. And through that, in my next roles, I did more text-to-speech voice production for a conversational AI assistant. And soon after that, I was approached by an AI company as a UI designer. And that kind of started my banking experience, because with 24/7 AI, I had a chance to work with Capital One on their IVR system. And it was just during the time that Capital One was going for more NLP and NLU assisted IVR methods. So that was really like in my introduction to banking space. And so basically it's been 4 or 5 years now. And I worked after Capital One experience, I worked for another major bank for a chatbot and virtual assistant initiative. And let me just say that I started my current role at US Bank quite recently. So I'm super excited for my current role. And also just a disclaimer that I will be expressing my own personal views and experience here, not necessarily the representative of US Bank or my employer.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. I just want to share that we have Ben here saying hello and joining us as well. So can you talk a little bit about, let's talk kind of big picture first. When we think about the voice industry in all verticals, where are we kind of seeing some of the trends? And then can you focus a little bit more on this banking and financial space and where the adoption and the trends are within that area?
Yeah, totally. There's been definitely a huge demand for both customer service in general and conversational AI space, especially since the beginning of the pandemic last year. A lot of us just being confined to our homes and not being able to like go into a doctor's office or bank or even online shopping experience. So a lot of enterprises and businesses had to come back and invest in customer service products. And within that, conversational AI became more and more prominent, because there is now a much higher demand just for customer service. And in the quite recent past, chatbots and virtual assistants had kind of a bad rep because of, "I'm sorry, I don't understand you," kind of rule-based dialogue systems. But this seems to be changing right now, both from a technology perspective and from a user experience and user perspective. What I mean by that is that um, a lot of enterprises, including banks and financial institutions, are making huge investments into AI infrastructures. So the technology products and customer service is getting better and better. But at the same time, general user and population is adopting voice assistants as well. If we look at some of the numbers and research, it's showing that there are a lot more people using smart assistants with a voice assistant combined, whether it's Siri or Alexa or Google Assistant. It's becoming more of a bigger part of our daily lives. And like these demographics is just kind of applied to every generation. What I found out and what I had read about was kind of surprising that boomer generation, for example, and ended up adopting voice search at a shocking level than so many other different generations. But that's not to say that younger generations are not using that. Like right now, we live in the age of social media, Clubhouse, and so many old audio and social interaction methods. So there is just a general interest by the public to adopt these newer technologies, while the enterprises are also making investments to create like much better AI infrastructure.
And why do you think, Sibel, that the older population, we're saying maybe like 60 plus, seem to adopt voice a little bit faster than others initially?
I think it's because like a lot of people now have smart assistants, like home assistant, like Google Hub or Alexa headless devices at their home. And it just becomes a lot more practical just to be able to do a general search by using voice rather than having to turn on your laptop or go into your smart assistant. And because now this older population is just more at home and having to do things more digitally, I think, these smart assistants or home appliances is just making a much more practical way of using those for older population.
No, I mean, and it makes sense not just for that population, but for all of us. So it's something that is
Exactly.
just more natural. It's easier. We're seeing it more often. So can you talk a little bit about the current state of the art and the conversational AI challenges? We're talking about conversational AI, how to use it, but are there certain challenges that you're seeing that are kind of consistent, either in general or in the banking financial space at this time?
Yes, definitely. There are, multitude of challenges right now. Also, it's especially because conversational AI is still quite new field as part of user experience. Like user experience has been around at least a decade, and everybody, like all the companies and designers, created their own workflows. But it's not necessarily the same for conversational AI design. We are still learning how to design best user experiences using voice interface. And at the same time, like users are also learning how to use these digital products. And so we are just seeing like this amp up both from a user perspective and from a technology perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's something that is ever growing. I think the important part of the conversational AI part is there is so much creativity and so much human element that goes into what is being created that sometimes that's forgotten. And so there's this mix of that kind of creative and tech that comes together when you're putting
Yes,
this on.
exactly.
Any other challenges, maybe what are the differences between like a UX challenge
Yeah.
versus an AI challenge? How do you kind of like showcase the difference between those two? And are there any similarities?
Yes, that's a great question. Like one of the major UX challenges in terms of the general population adopting voice technology just like in other enterprises as well, is the privacy concerns. When you just start talking to a microphone, that can be challenging, and especially if it's like banking related, um, people just think twice. And also the other reason is because of this bad rep that happened in the last 5 or so years. Users don't really know how to talk to voice assistants and just try to find their way to communicate with these digital products. From an AI perspective too, there are challenges because for a really good AI system to work really smoothly and recognize user utterances, you have to have like really good machine learning models that is running in the back end. And as we work with natural language, especially English language, it can be quite ambiguous. So there are challenges with understanding what the user is saying. Sometimes certain activities can be phrased in a way that can have multiple calls to actions. In those cases, there are different methods to lead the conversation towards the right path for the user. But again, both the technology and user have to work together to adopt this voice technology and create this trust and not really give up like after 1 or 2 errors, just thinking that, oh, this is not working for me, or I don't know what to say. But because AI models just get better with frequent usage, and by having that trust relationship with our digital products, they will eventually get to a much better experience, because essentially a lot of the conversational AI is basically like teaching a small child how to speak, like from an infant age to school age. So as we build these language models, it only gets better by more and more frequent usage.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When people are using voice, and it's not just voice, it's any new technology, because they haven't used it
Yes.
before, there's a frustration. And it happened today. I went to lunch and somebody was using a new system for point of sale, and the woman almost had a breakdown. And
Yes.
I was like, it's okay, take a breath. And the guy came out and showed her, but it was like she felt kind of anxious, and she said, I don't want to do it anymore. Do you have any suggestions for ways that any organization can kind of help calm people down, maybe get rid of that anxiety,
Yes.
and get them to kind of try things again, even if it's new or challenging for them?
Exactly, for sure. So there are different levels of user experiences and conversational AI right now. And the path we are moving towards is basically going from a more reactive user experience to proactive user experiences. So in your example with being at a grocery store or trying to make a purchase in person, and the transaction doesn't go through, that is definitely a high stress scenario. And by leveraging conversational AI products, and now that we live in the age of big data and analytics, we have so much information and insights that we can learn from users' activities and actually alert them in advance before those negative outcomes happen. So instead of having to deal with that kind of frustrating scenarios right when it is happening, users can take actions before it gets to that point.
Yes, no, that is an exciting piece as well. I just want to show you that Nicole is here to support you. It's always nice when we have people that care about us to show support as well. When we think about other components of conversational AI, there's many pieces to it. And there's kind of, you can do like the bare minimum, and then you can really make it robust and really showcase the brand. Do you have any thoughts of where things like a customized voice, a TTS, a sonic brand, sounds, visuals, multimodal things could
Yes.
kind of be part of this? And why are they important, and how could they enhance something like that?
Definitely. That's another great question that is so important, because when we build a conversational AI interface, we don't just create this digital product and let the user discover how to use it. essentially everything that we are creating in any of the enterprises, not just in banking, needs to be representative of the brand that that enterprise is basically putting in place, and that basically needs to create user engagement and user trust. And as human beings, we tend to recognize voices even more than like facial recognition. So voice is a huge part of our lives, like from infancy to adulthood. So having customized TTS voices and sonic branding will definitely help the users associate that voice with your brand and just alert them whenever they start hearing that voice. And it will also reinforce your company's brand. So it really works for everyone. When it comes to a sonic branding, which is becoming more and more important these days, it's a very interesting area, but it is also being super useful in this kind of multimodal interactions, because they can alert the user for a confirmation or for an error state or completion of a task. Just like when we are on social media or type into other people, we hear these like haptic sounds or the touch tones, whatnot. The similar sonic branding is coming into just basically reinforce that brand as well. And from another multi-model perspective, just having that both visual and voice element brings in another access point for all the users, not just the general population, but when we create these digital products, they have to be like representative of all the user bases, including people with cognitive impairments or speech disorders or visual or auditory impairments. So when we build like voice into to complement visual design, it really creates best of both worlds, both for people who have trouble reading or seeing visuals, and also people who have hard time hearing what is being spoken.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think sometimes people think, it's people who have an extreme disability, but there are many people, all of us, as we age, our eyesight decreases,
Mm-hmm.
our ability to hear decreases. People go, maybe have an accident, and there's cognitive
Yeah.
issues. And so, like you said, it is important to be able to have these voice options and really be thinking about all of the people, which is a challenge to make sure that you're keeping everyone included and it's an experience that everyone can interact with and be able to access and feel good about.
Yes, for sure.
Now,
Definitely.
we have some more women here who are supporting you. We have Elaine. She said she's here to support you. You're doing amazing. Susan is also saying you're doing amazing. And I assume that these women are part of Women in Voice. And Women in Voice is all over. You are part of, like you said,
Yeah.
you're one of the lead ambassadors for the Silicon Valley chapter. Can you tell us a little bit about what Women in Voice is and what you do out in Silicon Valley in California?
Yeah, for sure. Women in Voice is essentially a nonprofit organization for general women in tech, and more specifically women in voice, to get together and share insights and experiences to empower each other. And it has become a really important and major organization, not just in the United States, but we also have many other chapters, both in Europe, in Asia, even in Africa, Australia. So until quite recently, there wasn't a chapter for the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and now I live in San Francisco. So because I have been in this industry for quite a while now, I got in touch with Women in Voice to initiate a local chapter here, because there are a lot of professionals, both women and men, in voice technology. For us, like creating a platform and a place to share our learnings and experiences, it's becoming more and more important. And also, right now, in this age of conversational AI, there are more and more people who are transitioning maybe from more of traditional UX background or journalism background or even theater or script writing. So it is giving them a chance to get together with other women who have made those transitions into their careers and empower them also. So it's really a win-win both for the members and for the technology adopters.
Yes, and that is part of the reason we call this show Creative and Tech, because conversational AI combines both of those things. There are so many
Definitely.
people in this voice space that, especially more in the conversational design piece generally, that did come from a theater background, an art background, a writing background, something creative. And I love
Mhm.
that this industry blends those two. And it's so wonderful to be able to have organizations like this and to have various chapters where people like yourself are kind of leading these locally. So if people want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about what US Bank is doing, they have questions, where are some of the best places that they could do to gather that information?
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone would like to get in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have a website, which is sibelciddi.com, just my first and last name all together. And we also have our own webpage for Women in Voice organization, and it will be womeninvoice.org/Silicon Valley. And through that, there's a contact us option as well. And anybody who wants to get involved can contact us that way. So we have numerous ways of reaching out to members and interacting with them.
Wonderful. And is there any way to kind of keep up to date as to what US Bank is doing with voice as that kind of progresses? What is the best website
Yes.
for that?
Yes, definitely. So US Bank has a smart assistant that is available both in Android and iPhones, and it's available to US Bank customers. But there are also other demos on social media and YouTube if anyone wants to check that. I don't have the link right in front of me right now, but it is available publicly for anyone who wants to check it and see what's a great example of multimodal voice and text-based customer service.
Yeah, if you look up the US Bank Smart Assistant promo video, you can check it out. It does have a bit of a long link, but you can find it on there. And then the last question I have for you, you've been in this space, again, this combination of conversational AI and finance for a long time. What is maybe one tip or piece of advice that you would give a banking or financial institution, or maybe someone who works there, in terms of where to begin with conversational AI, or any tips on conversational AI as a whole?
Yes, that's a great question. And when enterprises start thinking about going into conversational AI interfaces, there are actually many prerequisites to that before you can create a product and launch that. And what I find most important is that enterprises need to adopt AI first technology and mentality, because even if you have a great conversational design team and creative people, mix of both creative and technical talents, if the enterprises don't have that AI infrastructure, then it's not really so straightforward to create really great experiences. So that happens like in terms of creating APIs that can be used by different omni channels and um, just can bring all the user information into one place in a much seamless way. So that's one recommendation that I would make for any enterprise or financial institution. For users, I would say, like what I was mentioning earlier, is that um, AI technology is only keep getting better and better by
Mhm.
frequent usage. So please don't lose faith if you run into an error, because errors happen even in normal human speech, and we correct it and move on. And now the technology is again moving us to that direction. So don't lose faith, and keep interacting with these digital products.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, sharing your passion, your insights, not only for this space and what you're doing in your career, but also in your local community, and just sharing, your knowledge and your passion with others. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
And if you are watching or listening, don't forget to subscribe to our ReadSpeaker AI YouTube channel, as well as our audio podcast called Creative and Tech, wherever you listen to podcasts.